Are we hearing the game sound effects? Okay. So, welcome to the Week 6 stream for the Opus Magnum tournament. The puzzle this week was Amelia's Catalyst. The idea for this puzzle is you're simply turning a molecule inside out. These cardinals all unify to quintessence, and the silver unpacks into 4 quicksilver. So that's the idea. The metrics for this week were Cycle's product, which I think went okay, but this was originally supposed to be a latency puzzle. I got a combination of cold feet with all the silly metrics and willingness to give the Cycle's mains a real challenge. I think it could have been better if I kept it as a latency puzzle, but but for but for Cycles, it was still fine. The other metric I screwed up on. I made you do width. Worse yet, I made you do width cost cycles. Um, this was a bad decision. I hope it's the worst decision I make in this tournament. You're gonna see why. Let's see. Oh, okay, the first thing my parser does is crash. Let me try that again. So we are starting in 50th place as we usually do because we got 105 submitters for this week, and you will see no variation in the primary or secondary for the rest of this stream. And I hope you understand if I'm gonna kind of speed through this, because you're also not going to see very much variation in what the layouts look like. If you're watching this as a recap on YouTube, I recommend you fast forward to the timestamp where Cycle's product starts. That's going to be a way more interesting part of the stream. Anyway, watch this happen. So you saw a little bit of flailing here at the Critelia. This is for conditional waste management, I believe, because lead atoms do just pile up. So, fun fact: the semi-arbitrary cutoff I use for these submissions is 50th place because I just don't have time to deal with everything. The appreciation stream might be interesting because of where I chose to make the cutoff. Good idea, B. Jonas. vertical. Guilty Bystander writes, I hate that this doesn't loop to infinity. WGC sounded tedious, so I made WGI instead. Valid. Knowing what I know now, what should the metrics have been? Oh, I still would have done cycles. Okay, I might have stuck to latency. What really would have spited past me is if I made this a height puzzle instead, because like it looks like it's kind of designed to be a width puzzle, but it's I bet it would be much more interesting for height, which is I don't know if that's a condemnation of width or of my puzzle design skills. Probably both. Just a moment. Parser is being a bit difficult. Okay, there we go. So in past streams, occasionally parser difficulty has made it so that I thought I was loading someone a player's solution, but I was actually loading the previous player's solution. I am not sure I will be able to catch it when I do that this time, at least for this specific metric and this specific puzzle. You're seeing some of this idea of shuffling waste towards the end um when you're disassembling, and then shuffling waste towards the other end when you're assembling. We're going to be doing a lot of that, so it is going to get more elegant as time goes on, as much as this metric can be elegant. The notes say, with my understanding of the game, this is the min cost I am able to achieve. I really wonder how people will get it lower. You could probably save a ton of cycles by doing better waste management, but I already programmed this thing from scratch too many times, so I can't be bothered anymore. Meow. And yeah, this is min cost, so don't worry about it. You made the mainstream. So interestingly, this time Quicksilver is being stored on the glyph of unification instead of being Quicksilver is being individually doled out to the product as they are generated. So this is storing quite a lot of atoms. This hex is going to be a great place for waste in general because it's forced by the position of the glyph of unification, but you also don't need a touch to use the glyph of unification, so why not? Uh, Also seeing the advent of bonded waste now. If you bond two atoms together, you only need to handle the chunk once. Tunnel Vision writes, I only figured out how to do this with two arms towards the end of the last day, so I didn't have time to finish optimizing the cycles. I don't know if anybody had time to finish optimizing the cycles. Guilty bystander. The the shading is a little funky on community editions Zoom. I'm not sure what causes it since it used to be fine, but it's not now. We're just gonna have to roll with it. Yeah, Death Weasel moving the lamp closer will be in the next update, I think. So this is what I meant by not plucking up all not plucking up all the Quicksilver all at once in a previous solution. This just consumes the Quicksilver as it's created. Don Jamin writes, I was really surprised that it works in 2.5 width. I hope the cost is not too bad. Really excited to see if you can avoid the stupid lead juggling. You cannot avoid the stupid lead juggling, sadly. Okay. So this convenient hex is where a lot of Quicksilver goes this time, interestingly. Okay, so this is interesting waste positions for the lead. Start out with some convenient positions and using the less convenient ones as time goes on, as you do. Spectrea writes, I feel so certain that I messed up my min cost analysis, and I am 100% sure that faster is possible, and will get hit. I just can't be bothered to hand optimize a 1000 instruction tape. Yep. So we started at 1,500 or so instructions. We've cut off a significant amount by now. And using the waist lead positions here on unification. If you're spawning the Quicksilver and handling with Arm 1, these 3 hexes really are kind of neat for waste management. It's just that you have more lead incrementally to deal with. Yeah, yeah. Ultra short pulse. For the terminate, you can spit as many solutions as you want. They can be for either of the 2 metrics. You'll be graded on them both separately. Right now, we're going over the width cost cycles metric, and then we'll be going over cycles, which will look way different. The notes say, "I feel so." Did the note say that? No, I was just looking over my parser wrong. Yeah, which push has no notes. Yeah, this is a common clarification that we have to make for new players. Ultra short pulse. The 2 metrics that we have for any tournament puzzle are completely unrelated and should be treated as 2 separate challenges for the same puzzle. Width is causing a very specific set of problems that cycles does not cause. But that's not to say cycles doesn't cause problems. It does. It has a lot of problems. Right now, the good hex is solves one of the 6 waste lead problems in the puzzle. These 2 are also common choices, it seems. Gonna speed this along. Drops are very slow here. So the waste corridor is here this time. Seems like we're having a bottleneck around 1100 with this rejection placement. Wonder if that will continue. Another teeny drop. Mika writes, the solve was first called Zaggy because the obvious way to build a looping solution is to build a zigzagging waste chain. Of course, that turned out to be totally unnecessary, so the final solution is very much not Zaggy. First solve was pretty bad, so I remade it from scratch. The resulting solve had an extra piston behind the output cliff, which just stored all the waste. I was okay with it and moved on to cycles. Once I came back to this metric, I deleted the waste handling piston and was surprised to see that there didn't seem to be anything that made the resulting layout impossible. After programming it, I got the solution you see here. Width as a metric is pretty fun. Pistons seem pretty much required, which is a nice change for a cost puzzle. Excited to see if/how the top solves got around using pistons, though. This solve finally made me try out OM Clone, and boy was that worth it. Typing solutions and immediately seeing them reflected in the current state instead of having to fast forward for 10 seconds is a huge time saver. I bet it is. We have a tertiary tie here. The notes say, I really, really hope this is a competitive cost because this took me absolutely ages to program. Terrified at the prospect of finding something cheaper in the next 5 days and having to program all over again. Nah. OM Clone is a web-based tool that if you give it a layout for a puzzle, you can program the arms and have the results of the programming immediately show up on the screen. The graphics are fun in that they exist. Darkbrick wants me to read the notes this time, so I shall do that. Is that made with OM Clone? If it's made with OM Clone, I don't want it. Ma'am, that is 1,076 cycles solved for the width metric. It is not optimal in cycles, area, nor cost. It is an amalgamation of esoteric metrics, optimized 6p, exported out of and re-imported back into the game, ultimately inexorably joined in an unholy piston obelisk. Zack had no hand in the creation of this abhorrence. The fact that this solution exists proves that Zack is either impotent to alter his game or ignorant to the horrors taking place in his community. This prism of glyphs is more than a solution. It is a physical declaration of alchemy's contempt for the natural order. It is hubris manifest. We also have a CX solution if you would prefer that. Watch the rest of this hubris and then move on. Woo, on to different placement. There are no notes. There are never notes for spiritual shampoo solutions. So we're still having very incremental improvements in the cycles count. Just by these small choices in where to where to put the waste atoms in between shuffling things. Return of bonded waste though, that's pretty cool. A creative title. I think this is the bookworm's first time on the mainstream, so that's cool. The notes say, took a bit of thinking to get down to 160G. Spent a lot of time trying to see if lower is possible via shenanigans. I don't think it is, but fully proving that is hard. Doesn't seem to be much variation on possible layouts at 160G, but I expect to be surprised by something, as usual. You said it. This time the rejection is on the assembly side, which I don't think has been the case for last few solutions, unless I have just completely not noticed that. Who am I kidding? I've totally not noticed that. Yay, spinny! There are no notes for this one. Here we have a sort of middle rejection. It's on the disassembly side, but pretty close to the other, comparatively speaking. There are no notes. The closeness of the rejection to the assembly arm is really pulling its weight. Yeah, we are yap deficient this week. Oh well. ABC. Yeah, you may have thought you'd be demolished by the people who tried to do tertiary optimization, but the thing is, you would have to do tertiary optimization. Which, I mean, imagine doing that for this puzzle. So back to bonded waste again. But maybe it's just like the first two lead. Previously, when we've seen bonded waste, it has just been one bond, not like a chain or anything, because you don't really have space for a chain. Okay, Zandorf. Okay, I have an equilibrium. Does that mean uh maybe okay, Zandorf, thank you for your solution, but oh, there it is. We found it. We found it. Spectrea Limina. If you're offering to be a yapper, I will take it, but I don't require one. OM streams can have a little cringe as a treat. Oh, whoops, parser. Just had to behold Critelli for a bit longer. Random name writes, "This is a pretty simple metric to create theory for, at least compared to the others we've been seeing lately. Clearly, 2 width is not enough to move the input anywhere, so 2.5 is min. Also, the input, output, and unification glyph all cannot be reached over by an arm, nor moved past, leading to a rather trivial need for at least 2 arms, as no individual arm can reach everything needed. Additionally, no arm can reach every tile of unification, so that becomes the center of the solve, with the 2 arms on either side. Additionally, it's impossible to take the full input to a debonder, or similarly take the full product to the output from a debonder, with unless a piston arm on 2 tracks, thus giving us our minimum cost components being a bonder, debonder, unification, 2 pistons, and 4 track, totaling 160 G. Yep, that's a pretty good overview of why all the solutions look the same. That said, out of respect for each solution, I'm letting them all run to completion. And then immediately moving on if I can, because we got more of these. It's titled one more cycle because it improves on a previous submission of mate by 1 cycle, but it also improves on random name solution by just 4. So that's nice. The notes say, "I'm gonna feel stupid if this isn't hitting the min for both W and G. I spent so much time improving the tertiary. From what I've seen, the WGC on this puzzle is an interesting challenge because of all the different atom placements that result in radically different patterns, with only a handful of cycles to save in the end. But with that, I'm expecting ties and would be surprised if someone scored one under 950 C, although every single week has surprised me so far. Fun fact, in 978 C, my cycle solution can play 40 times over. I enjoyed this week a lot. I am glad you had your one fun experience with waste management. Um, the others will probably be less fun when you have them. Hello, Spectri Illumina. Fine, just... Yeah, that's neat. I'm fine, just working through 30 more width solutions. Uh, I can hear you. Oh, okay. I... Mm, let me figure out how to fix... I have to remember how I fixed that in the previous time this happened. Does this work? No, it doesn't. Over. Okay. Uh, that sucks.
Into your stream?
I've gone over this with BIST, but OBS works differently on Linux.
Oh, it's working now.
Yeah. Change the output capture a bit. Let's hope it
Okay.
works.
Seems like they can hear me. So we're good.
Okay. Good, 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 good. Um, the notes. The notes say, smaller width is clearly impossible. Smaller cost, though, I wouldn't be that surprised. These two pistons on track seem expensive, but an arm on track or piston without track just has so much less power, I couldn't find a way to save money like that. Unification needs so many access points, and with the width restriction as well as the sliding motions necessary for input and output, it feels implausible to do this more cheaply.
Yeah, I really looked for alternatives and couldn't find one either. I think the real tech here is putting the rejection on the far side of the input. For some reason that never occurred to me.
Yeah,
But it
rejection
just means you're handing sorry.
rejection placement has a huge impact on your cycle count for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it means you're only passing the silver through instead of 4 quicksilver. So that's a massive, massive change.
The notes say lead building up in the solution like cholesterol in my arteries. Hashtag relatable.
One thing that's interesting to note is that there are multiple viable handoff points in a layout like this. I think you're going to see the one sort of horizontal track and one diagonal track a lot because you need the diagonal track gives you nice access to the two glyphs, but the horizontal it can't access the center of the quintessence. But it's worth noting that there's like 4 different hexes that are reachable by both arms, so there's a lot of variation possible in sort of where you hand things off.
Thank you for your insight. Um, is this working? Yeah, it's working.
I actually don't think this puzzle was that bad. I mean, I cursed you, but that's just because I hate waste management personally. I think it was actually quite a nice puzzle in terms of having waste management, but not too much of it.
That's good at least. Calvin Hecker's notes say, this was interesting to make. Anyways, I'm sure it's not the best, but I'm glad to be at least min width and I think min cost. Getting cycles below 1,000 was a pain. I'm looking forward to see how the top solves do it in, like, 500 cycles. I'm not looking forward to the mysterious 30G improvement that shatters everything I think I know about this puzzle. At least I'm confident that 2.5 width is min. We'll see how many of those predictions are relevant.
Albatross said something in the chat about a Biar, and I've been thinking about that ever since, and I still have no idea what they're getting at, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, the immediate follow up to that message was a buy
Oh,
arm. A
okay.
buy arm was a good as a dummy arm because it's closer to the field that you're manipulating stuff in than a single arm. Because I only have to move the
Right.
cursor this much.
Oh, this is interesting with the rejection in front of the piston.
Yeah, normally these pistons want to be as close. At least these assembly pistons want to be as close to unification as possible, but that's not the case this time.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
The notes say, I really hope I didn't miss any way to do it for cheaper than 160G. Programming all the solutions took way too much effort. I sadly won't be able to catch the stream because I have D&D, so please let me know how I did. You did pretty good. You made the mainstream.
I will ping Lilia. One other thing that I think is kind of nice about this puzzle is that because of the slides required for the to both like pull an input and drop an output, you can't you have to use a piston, and that means that you have the full flexibility of pistons. Like imagine if one of these arms had to be not a piston, that would be a much more difficult programming challenge.
It would, though for some reason people seem to go gaga for the programming challenges when they're using a dinky little single arm.
Yeah, that's fair. Not my cup of tea, but
I love you, Cosmains,
oh,
even if I don't understand you.
exactly. This is cool. Passing the waste through to optimize the use of that unification. That's very neat.
Yeah, the waste shuffling is happening concurrently with the assembly of the quintessence and such, which is an interesting change, which is probably has to do with the big drop this was from the previous 38 cycle drop.
Yeah, absolutely. As with these sorts of whenever you're doing a cost secondary on a small solution, just minimizing the amount of downtime on your arms tends to be the best approach. And that often means that like extra grabs are worth it if they mean that the arm is at least making some progress. Not always, but very often.
There's a similar principle to that in some. You just generally want to be doing stuff instead of not doing stuff. Anyway, this is an improvement by one cycle.
Yes, yeah.
The
They're going to
notes
be the same, but
the notes say, how much metal shavings can we add to Casian's sandwich before he notices? This puzzle would be brutal to optimize, which is why I didn't. I did my best to spot shaves as I was programming it, and did fully program out both viable layouts, but I'm not going to watch this cycle by cycle to make sure it's perfect. I'm sure this solved bleed cycles in places, but I'm simply too lazy. I'm very curious to see the commentary for this metric. I'm either missing some of the solution space, or it's going to be very difficult to tell where solves save cycles. Interesting to me that basically every set of notes I've read has been along the lines of, I can't wait for the actual authority on this metric to chime in, and I'm thinking, my dude, it's width. There is no authority on this metric. Ah, thank you, DOS Boots.
I think that this probably resembles area most in terms of how it plays out of the main metrics.
Yeah,
Like the two piston shuffle is a very area thing.
yeah, and this is a shape metric after all. They are cousins of area.
I wonder if this would have been interesting using Panic's layers metric, allowing you to kink the tunnel.
Possibly. These notes say, cleans waste and loops after 6 products. Goes out of the lines to do so, of course. 6 products per tape did save many cycles. I do want to see that. The lines, of course, being the borders of width 2.5.
I really wish that there was like an equilibrium glyph that didn't consume area.
Yeah. Gosh, can you imagine if the glyph
Actually,
of equilibrium had a cost to it? Nobody would use it for anything.
actually, maybe that's something we could request for Community Edition is equilibrium doesn't consume area.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Because like I initially built my solution by using equilibrium to like denote a tunnel to work in. And I've done that in area too, like mark the outside area.
New solution, big number. That's how you know it's Cuckoo 52. There are no notes. It's just kind of good.
One, two, three, four. I don't know if you missed the conversation yesterday, but possibility of sim difference between Community Edition and main is in play, although the different devs have different kind of opinions about it, so who knows if that'll actually happen. I think something like this wouldn't be that severe though, because all it would mean is that certain solutions would score fewer area on Community Edition than main. So and in a way that's just like if you delete all the equilibrium, they would score the same. So I don't think that'd be that bad of a difference. Certainly something we can bike shed though.
I just don't want us to have a Java edition, Bedrock edition type thing going on. This solution,
Yeah, absolutely.
big drop for cycles here. The notes say
Oh yeah.
the notes say OM clone only ever adds one OM clone to a solution title manually, so I had to add it manually for each version. I would have preferred an at infinity metric for width, make it way less annoying that way. So where's the big improvement?
I don't recall what was on the last one, but I think that construction looks very fast to me. I'm not sure we've had the have we had many solutions use this layout yet?
I think we've had a few, but not many. This one is really taking advantage of how close the glyph of rejection is to assembly.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure where the huge gain is though. It's tough in these 6Ps because it could be like it could be a 30 cycle save on one iteration with the waste handling, or it could just be a 5 cycle improvement to sort of the base loop. Although that seems unlikely now that I've said it. Yeah, okay, GUI's paying more attention than me.
Dose Boot says something ominous about Theoryman. Okay, there are
Is
no
there
notes
a
here.
theory min? Like, does that even make sense to talk about a theory min? Given the waste handling?
If it does, I'm not aware of how it would work.
Okay, so this one uses bonded waste, which is probably the source of the save. Oh yeah, that makes the quintessence really easy to work with. Oh, two bonded waste. This is the first one we've seen that, right?
Yes. And handling that bonded waste with a lot of pivots, actually.
Yeah. Boots said that the layout has a very low theory min, not the puzzle though. Is this min secondary? Yes, it is.
The notes
Massive.
The notes say, I don't see how this could be solved any cheaper. You need an arm between input and unification glyph, and another between unification glyph and output. Placing the unification glyph not in the middle seems like a bad idea because you can't access it only from one side. I don't believe that it's possible to replace one of the pistons with a normal arm or to have one of them not on a track, but I also find it hard to believe that this is min cost because it didn't feel cursed enough. I'm curious to see where I was wrong. Regardless if 160G is actual min or not, I expect there will be several submissions at this cost, so tertiary optimization will matter. I made one update to my waste shuffling, saving 12 cycles, but there would surely be more potential for improvement. This week was the first time I used OM clone, and I'm very glad I did. Feels like I've read this exact set of notes 5 times.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it goes.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
appreciate everyone's thoughts, even if it sounds like I don't. It's just that I do have to go through 50 of these.
I think the waste handling is interesting on this one. I'm not sure where this improvement's coming from, and I'm a bit surprised given the extra pivots required with this unbonder layout.
It is just a mystery, it seems. Oh, and one of these arms halts, but the other doesn't. That's cool.
Oh. Halt was so nice for this. Just keeping a halt at the very end of your tapes so that you don't have to worry about looping. Yeah.
The notes
It'd
say
almost be nice. Sorry, go on.
the notes say please make it so that trying 2 other layouts to save 283 cycles was not pointless. Boy howdy was it not pointless.
Yeah, that's that 200 cycles and you're in like the low 40s territory. So, for your tournament staff, are you like discussing and looking at the puzzles as the week goes on for the solutions, or do you just sort of unpack this on Sunday morning?
We are monitoring the solutions as they come in and have comments for each other. I refresh the submission page probably an unhealthy amount of times.
Golden baguette.
It does help me plan a little bit about what I'm going to say, but not that much, really.
Yeah, I remember doing that the one time I made a weekly puzzle. That was a lot of fun. Also, apologies if this got covered in a different stream, but no author solves this tournament.
No author solves this tournament.
Any particular reason? The jiggling arm there.
Yeah, sure. Let me do another solution to add to these already long streams. That would be nice.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, the notes say, I love this metric. It was very fun to build and optimize, and I'm very proud of my solution. I still only have 40 hours in the game, 20 of which were spent on this single puzzle, but the campaign seems quite boring now compared to this. After my initial solution for width 2.5, I managed to save single bits of track here and there and broke the 200 cost barrier. My original layout had both input and output at the bottom. Hold on. There. Dang it! I pressed the wrong button. So, so on Thursday, I considered other possible layouts and noticed you could just put the combinator in the middle and work around it with two pistons. I found an arrangement that works and brought my cost down to 165G. Finally, on Friday, I cut out one last piece of track, leaving just 4 behind. I wrote this a lot of times before, but now I actually don't know how to realistically improve this. I'm hopeful for top 50, but you never know with this community. Shoutouts to Clone, and you misspelled the puzzle file name. Yeah. The thing I wanted to point out but missed twice was the little shuffle that Arm 1 does at the end with the lead atom when it's no longer needed. That's funny.
Yeah, that was cute. Agree. I also like the equilibriums at the end to make it into a baguette.
Oh. The notes say, this makes 9 products. It would indicate that I may have put too much cost into waste handling, except that I didn't put any cost into waste handling. We have waste handling at home. I'm not actually sure what that means.
I definitely did the use an extra arm to do waste handling at the beyond the output before I realized that I didn't have to do that, and then I was sad because that meant a much more involved.
Yeah,
Oh
you have to
yeah,
do...
is this? Yeah. This keeps going.
Sure does. Naganeski says, the extra products were me having fun with OM Clone for the first time. Yeah,
Pop.
look at it go! And it stops
I
there.
think it's a very. I think the approach she uses for putting the 3 atoms on the unification glyph and then shuffling the waste off, that seems to be very good.
Yeah, it is. Even the earlier solutions have kind of started to notice that. There are no notes.
Seems to be another pile up in the mid 700s.
Yep. So the sane rejection placement is great.
Yeah, I think that that's clearly the winner because it just means your construction is so quick.
Also, the pun in the title, plumbing, because lead.
Oh. Wah, 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 wah.
Okay, the notes here say, I feel like the undertone for this tournament is what to do with the waste. I think this might be both min width and cost, since I have min glyphs and you need at least 2 piston arms to maneuver around the tight space, but not sure about a track if sub 160 is possible. Color me impressed. Yeah, sub 160 did not happen.
I was so afraid it was going to happen. There was something I missed.
It's always a good question to ask yourself in a tournament if you missed something. Just did not happen. Oh, the funny time wasting pivot. I actually shouldn't call that time wasting. That's mean. Entertainment pivot.
It's just well in programming terminology we'd call it spinning.
Yep. Let's see that again.
The other real advantage to this layout is that you get started on the next unification before you. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Like, while Arm 2 is doing your construction, Arm 1 can start pulling the next input and peeling cardinals off.
When there's not as much waste available. Um, when there's not as much waste, you really want to do that parallelism. Okay. Seer Sky writes, so much shuffling. I refuse to optimize cycles for this. You can't make me. Yeah, shuffling, party rockers. You get it.
I think it just goes to show the power of this layout that the people. Oh, passing the silver up early.
Yeah.
Nice little optimization. Are we going to repeat that? Yep. I think there's lost my train of thought. I was gonna say, I think it goes to show the power of this layout. How many people are like, I refuse to optimize cycles, but they're like 250, 300 ahead of some other players just because they picked a better layout, and so their unoptimized solution is better than a more optimized solution of a worse layout.
Layouts are kind of incomprehensible like that. I mean, they make sense if you've been lost in the Opus Magnum sauce for ages. But if you're not, it might just be like magic how you get the 300 cycles. There are no notes for this one. Same idea, same magic rejection placement. 4-cycle improvement somehow. Leganeski says the perpendicular track is really slow, so having only one of them instead of two is a significant improvement. I believe at least one is required for 160 cost. And both arms halt. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's very true. You need one. Or do you? Maybe there is a layout improvement that doesn't have one. Doubt it, though. I don't think you can access the unification. Right?
This is an improvement by 1 cycle. There are also no notes.
It would be neat if we had like a tool that would for like 6P solutions like this where there's a lot of waste management to at least sort of compare us of like, does input 1 happen at the same rate? Does input 2 happen at the same rate? Or output 1, output 2. And... yeah, I guess you could just use a Lexi parser.
This is a 10-cycle improvement. I don't think... well, unless... so I haven't individually looked at the layouts of the remaining solutions, but I don't think we're going to see any variation from here forward, or at least not very much. even compared to the rest of the top 50.
Yeah, at this point I'd be surprised. I've been chewing on that. Artery clogged by lead. That's a recurring theme here, isn't it? In these titles.
A couple of them had said that. The notes say, if you find min width and min cost for that width, then does this become a cycles puzzle? Hopefully I was playing in the right category.
I'm really excited for cycles.
So am I. After being in the width verse for wait, arm one being funny at the end. Yeah, after being in the width verse for 50 solutions, going to cycles is going to be like the medieval peasant eating a Dorito chip meme.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the downside to these constrained area metrics, is that you get a lot less variation in the solutions. Another few cycles of save here. Should have been copper. That's terrifying. No.
At that point, do you want to spend the gilder to do proper like waste chain handling, or do you want to just build a Severius transformer? Food for thought.
I think you'd have to do the waste chain. At this.
Don't think we've seen Olivia Juliet in the top 10 yet. The notes say, min width, I think min cost. I can make a solid argument for why I need everything I've used, but this tournament has made me doubt my own brain, so who knows. And it loops. Thanks, width at 6.
Oh, that's cute. So we're starting to see bonded waste with this layout. We saw it last solve too. Only one waste bonded here. And now bring it, I guess she's gonna like bond all the waste together and make a chain, and then yeah.
It goes.
Yeah, I think bonded waste was sort of like the real sleeper tech here.
Everything that can save 5 cycles is a sleeper tech for this puzzle.
I'm curious whether there's going to be another big drop, or whether it's just going to be another, like, few cycle shaves here and there.
The notes say, my predictions, 50 solutions at min width, 20 at min cost, winner at 690 cycles. At this point in the stream, we are watching a lot of solves that differ only by tape. Yep.
Yep. Well, underestimated how many people would get min cost, but other than that, that's pretty much correct. A solid B minus. I think you did better than B minus. Oh, and that's a bit of a drop. 6 cycle drop.
Yeah, sure, we could call that a bit of a drop in this puzzle. The notes say, have not found any puzzle-breaking black magic, but it feels broadly decent for what it is. It sure is. Seer Sky says sleeper tech for this puzzle is going to sleep instead of spending even more hours programming variations on your waste handling. True. No OM clone, by the way. Nice.
That takes some real courage. I can see it though. I find navigating in the solution, like finding a specific part of it, almost worse than in vanilla. Almost. Now we need to make it through the last of these, but I don't think we're going to see much more that we can comment on, really. Another 6 cycle shave, is it? 7 cycles?
7, but yeah. I'm just gonna run this to completion and then move on to the next one. Two cycle drop. Kind of thinking this puzzle's becoming an argument for bringing back metric points, but like at least in some situations.
You mean like as opposed to placement?
Yeah, metric points are like how like you would get tournament ranking points based on like what your actual score was instead of like whether you were better than X number of people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
That being said, this method has stuck around for a while because it produces way fewer arguments. Because you know how pedantic this community is. It was a lot
I've never
worse.
noticed.
The notes say, "Kindly delete the width manifold, please. You make a compelling argument, Goodbye Galaxy."
None of these solves have. Oh no, this. I think this is the first solve on this layout to bond 2 waste.
Yep.
Or maybe the first one recently.
We've been on this one layout for a long time. It's hard to remember.
Stop doing with.
Yeah, if anyone has been holding on to a "stop doing with" meme but hasn't posted it for spoilers, now is the time to do it. Post it in chat. You're gonna get like 12 lit fire reactions.
I'm just imagining now the like this is the sort of thing that they're doing. You know, you gotta have the images. And one of them is like one of the puzzles with like a asymptotic. This is not the same layout.
It's basically the same.
What's different here? It is, but the other layout has had all, both the input, output, and quintessence all aligned. This is not.
Yeah, how does that help?
Yeah, the input is. Yeah, the input is different, and so it reduces the amount of pivots required on the input.
Oh.
I noticed that like 20 solves ago, and I was like, oh, that's interesting that there's these extra pivots required.
Okay.
Surprised that it took this long until we got to a layout without that.
Okay, I haven't been appropriately congratulating the people that have been on the podium of Rebek's tertiary tie. Uh, Congratulations on being on the podium, and congratulations to the next person. Uh,
Yeah, big congrats to Revix, Tertiary, and
Calioresis.
Calioresis. 666. Okay, Shinondes says that there was a bunch of solves using this layout, so I guess I just didn't notice.
The notes say proof that WG is the Antichrist. I've triple checked my assumptions and I don't see any way to get below 160G. If I'm wrong, then maybe this metric has more depth than I think, but if top solves look like mine, then the solution space is way too small. Yeah,
I think this would have been a good like week 2 or week 3 puzzle, but yeah,
so we still got
I don't know.
105 submitters somehow.
Yeah, and I think that like honestly, I don't think that a small solution space in terms of like layout and cost is necessarily bad because we saw like the top 50 went from like what was it like 1200 cycles down to 1600. Like there's a huge amount of variation there. I tend to think that the puzzles that I enjoy the least are the ones that are actually good.
Things things Opus Magnum players say unironically. So, that was width, cost, cycles. So what did we learn today, folks? Width is not a good metric? Yes, that's right. That's what we learned today.
Yeah, I think width is not the best metric.
Okay. Now let's fire up the cycle solutions.
Biggie. 36 cycles at 50th, and wow, this is quite something.
Yeah. So we've had a few people in chat and in notes um, saying that they give up and they're expecting everybody to have like min +1, and if you don't get that, you're not on the mainstream. We're starting at 36 cycles. That is pretty darn fast, especially considering what this puzzle is asking you to do. But it's not close to min.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil, but I'm just gonna say I will be incredibly amazed if anyone gets theory min. Like I will be absolutely gobsmacked if anyone gets theory min.
So already we are seeing something interesting. 7 inputs are used here. The last one is just for getting extra quicksilver in a more convenient place.
Yes. Yeah.
Because since the conceit of this puzzle is turning the molecule inside out, you need to get all the quicksilver out, and you need to debond all the cardinals from the central silver. That is eight different operations that have to be done on this silver.
Yeah, so there's a lot of room for optimization there, but at the cost of potentially making a very cursed machine.
Just a moment, just a second. Okay, we're gonna take a secondary drop. So now, for a symmetrical machine.
So lots of passing for the D-bonds, and then right into unification.
Yes, and this drop is mostly this drop is mostly in the cost rather than the area. It's only 3 less area, but a lot less cost. This is taking a this is taking the no longer breathe in rate period kind of approach where everything is period 4. It's you
Yeah,
have a lot of regrabs, but you keep it moving.
yeah. I think that the one thing that's going to be interesting, I think, is we're going to see like we're going to see solutions with that have a continuous loop, and solutions that don't, that pull an extra input and yank off that quicksilver. And I think this is going to be a puzzle where it's very interesting, where those two approaches may compete a lot.
And this drop is well, it's
Massive.
both, but a lot of it is area. So interestingly, this isn't at full throughput. There's there are 2 moments where it could have pulled in an input, but it doesn't.
Oh yeah, yeah. Interesting.
So even though
I wonder if
it's a lot more efficient in the latency of each pipeline, the lack of pulling at full throughput is what keeps it at 36 cycles.
yeah, and you can actually see why it can't pull at full throughput here, which is that the unification. If you look at the bottom, for instance, after the 2 unbonds, the fire swings onto the unification glyph before it's unbonded, and so that'll collide. Although it looks like there's an extra cycle to spare there, but that was one of the big constraints that I ran into, is that if you want to be running at full throughput on a pipeline, you need to make sure that you can't, you basically can't pass over the unification glyph. And as always, regrabs are killer. Every regrab you make costs you a cycle, so you really want to minimize those.
If you can save a if you can save a regrab, you can save a cycle. Like sometimes you can save 2 cycles, such as uh, well, my parts are crashed, so I couldn't have the good moment. But this next solution is going to be 34 cycles. Okay, here we are. Here we are.
This is a bit early in the stream for a solution called garbage, don't you think?
Yeah, I get it. Uh, the notes say, I'm pretty sure Sun Tzu once said a bad cycle solution is still a cycle solution. Theoretical minimum cycles appears to be 23, but I guess I'll settle for 11 more than that. I guess I won't talk about theory min quite yet. I'll make an. Mm, mm. Yeah, I won't.
I'd say I think there's a lot to be said about theory min, and I think that a lot of the folks in chat, um, leading up to the end, may have missed the theory min.
Okay. Um, Twitch chat says Discord is talking about Theoryman. I'm not going to be looking at Discord chat until the stream is over, but I'm glad you are having fun with the discussion in there. So this has a comparatively high product, um, but like that doesn't matter. You just save 2 cycles and you leapfrog ahead. We're we're going to be seeing incremental improvements in handling so this track loop here. Check out arm 1. There are 8 operations that have to be done on the silver, like I said, and because of the track loop advancement, they just all happen consecutively.
Yeah, that's huge. And what's happening to this waste? Oh, it's just getting built up.
Yeah.
No,
This
and
isn't
actually that could be...
Yeah, this isn't width. You have space to hold on to your waste.
Yeah, disposal is one way to get rid of it, but that still consumes area, so if you can just hold on to your waste and avoid needing disposal at all, that's really good. The arm ducking out into space at the end is a little unfortunate.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a beautiful Critelli.
if you've got to use a big old tri-arm, then you have to use a big old tri-arm. After all, the
Oh,
cycles are what's important.
I was thinking the arm way at the end. 48 on the far right.
Yep, this guy.
Yeah.
And yes, this is a really good Critelli placement. Very appreciated. Interesting that my parser is chugging a little more on the cycle solutions than the width solutions. Maybe that's a hint, or it could be superstition.
Wait, this puzzle had disposal.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. This looks fun. Okay, so here we see a technique of sliding, taking advantage of the fact that if you grab an atom in multiple places at once and slide it, you can maintain those grabs. So you get this cool pulling off everything from the silver. That's very neat. And then is that a separate pipeline with a piston specifically for that last silver? Get the mercury off?
I think it is.
Yeah. Oh, it's just to pass it off to the arm coming back. Very neat.
This, I believe, is what a lot of cycles mains call a multi-grab, where if you're separating a molecule with a glyph of unbonding, but you're still going to move both halves, you have to have it grabbed by 2 arms before you put it on there, and that's why the sliding / translation is required, because otherwise the molecule tries to move in two directions at once, and the game doesn't let you do that. This seems a little unfortunate, but it didn't matter. Because this product is significant improvement. There are no notes. Something speaks for itself. So this is interesting waste management, and only 3 glyphs of rejection per pipeline.
Oh, is this doing a wiggle on the rejection? No, it's just letting one... How's that working on the timing?
It's kind of just pulling furthest right glyph of rejection once every 2 cycles.
Yeah, okay, there's a couple regrabs on the quintessence, which is why that works. Because if you're trying to move the quintessence faster, then you won't be able to wait for a single rejection.
And we have the similar not at full proof full throughput constraint that we've seen in an earlier solution because of like the limitations of loading unification.
Yeah.
Let's take a 1 cycle drop.
33, first one.
So we are at full throughput again, and we are sliding into the output, which is interesting. So being at full throughput really helps. We gotta hang on. What is ARM 16 doing here? Got this intermediary brick.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so this is helping out with the plucking off of Quicksilver.
That's very cool. That's a really neat way to reduce the collisions. And oh, that pivot on that hex arm is beautiful.
This is cool.
But then is this just getting tracked to the output? Oh, that's a shame. That's so cool. And then the regrab and extra cycles spent on the track. Oh. That pivot is great though. Like those hex arms are beautiful. Really creative.
Ecologically responsible disposal of lead. Thank you for your solutions, Shavor. Golden Boy writes, didn't have much time this week, so secondary must remain unoptimized. If I don't get around to writing real notes before Sunday, you can read these ones. Meow. So we are getting a few regrabs around here, but it's pretty stylish collision avoidance despite that. Yeah, you can afford a few regrabs at this cycle count. And
yeah,
even with the lack of secondary optimization, good use of the regrab avoidance.
nice use of the pivots avoidance, on the bonder there.
Yeah, pivots.
And I like that track. I like that zigzag track loop. That's fun. One thing to consider about these long track loops, though, is if you're trying to optimize for product, that long track loop probably actually, given that this is measured at 6, like it's probably actually hurting your metric.
Also, this glyph of disposal doesn't actually do anything. It's for decoration.
Based.
Yeah. Deluxe equilibrium.
Another thing to watch out for when you're doing product optimization is that a piston versus a single arm on a track, which one is better can often depend on like the balance between your area and cost.
So we have a
3 unification.
two cycle drop here. The notes say, cycles is not my metric. This took me many moons, and it is still not good, but it might just about crack the top 50, and that's good enough for me. Also, product of 1,200,120 is pleasing, so there's that. So there's that. Yeah, this is why the skepticism in the product, all this area. That being said, the cycle count is what matters.
Yep, absolutely. This absolutely cycles first, and then optimize a little bit.
This isn't width. Your primary does matter. Cycles is one of the is okay. So like for area and cost, it's not really a primary race. Cycles is the most primary race out of the main 3 metrics by a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
The triple pipeline here is a lot of engineering, and it does pay off.
Yeah, it's very neat. It's the nice thing about this is it lets your outer pipelines be higher latency, right?
Yeah, you only have to do the last thing the fastest in cycles.
Yeah, that's also very true, Zorflack. The decisions you make early on can really affect your ability to have, like, to sort of resolve things later on. So here we see, yeah, there's a multi-bonder, and there's also a rejection wiggle. So you can't reject from a single atom if you just leave it still on a rejection glyph. You can't reject faster than once every 2 cycles. But if you swap it back between 2, then you can reject at 1 every 2 cycles. Sorry, 1 every cycle. And so that's what you see going on here.
It's a bit like what was happening in week 3's 9 rate solutions.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Seems like most of this assembly is really fast, and then there's a little bit of geometry struggling with the last Quicksilver, but it does get there in the end.
Yeah, it looks like there's 2 handoffs on the Quicksilver. Is that right?
Think so.
Yeah.
The notes say there theoretically exists an n equals 6, l equals 10 route, which would be 23. But I think you could grab extra inputs to speed up the last output even more. But anyway, cycles is hard, so here's a solve 8 cycles slower than that, which is also way too big and expensive because it's set up to keep outputting at 4 rate instead of having only enough machinery to make 6 products. The next... The drop in product for the next solution isn't that big, so I wouldn't call it way too big and expensive, but it could have gained you this placement here. 42 Genius 42 writes, reasonable cycles, though I imagine with fewer handoffs, something in the early 20s is possible. As for secondary, meh? If I remember correctly, this solution originally showed up as just one pipeline, and we later got a version of this which just mirrored it and slapped it together, which was nice. The multi grabs on these hex arms on track loops are wonderful to look at.
Yeah, yeah, I really like them. There's
So
unfortunately a bit of a collision in front of the unification, though, so the silver comes off quite late. Does that actually interfere? Yeah, the first bond on the quintessence is, what, 2 cycles after?
yeah, there's a handoff from arm 12 to arm 46. But after that, it's pretty smooth sailing in snapping on the rest of the Quicksilver, and
Yeah.
then getting it to the output is a bit of an ordeal. So that's where the extra latency comes from.
Yeah, if those arms were all length 2, would that not help on that last
Potentially,
triangle?
let's see if arm 36 were in the spot that arm 22 was, swinging it, put the Quicksilver here. I don't think it would work.
Yeah, I don't think it would save anything. You're right. No tinkering. Yeah, fair. We have 40 more solutions to get through.
Yeah.
Kazian, I can't submit you a version of my puzzle with a different name, can I?
A version of your puzzle with a different name? What?
Or my solution. I forgot to rename it.
Um, I'm not gonna mess with the pile of solutions I have in here right now, but if you just tell me the new name when it comes up, I'll treat it as if it's that name.
Yeah, sure. So this is a very asymmetric cycle or solution. 30 cycle halt. So the long south pipeline is quite long, and so the top pipeline actually gets used 4 times. But look at that smooth motion on those silvers on the top pipeline.
Even on the bottom pipeline, really understanding the 8 things need to happen to silver constraint. There are no notes, so let's move on. The exact same area, but with less stuff. Well, okay, so the rate at which material is pulled from the input is definitely not optimal, but like the latency on the pipelines in general. I mean, look at that. The quintessence is immediately pulled off as soon as the cardinals are ready. It only takes one extra cycle to get to Quicksilver, and it's multi-bonding. See
Yeah, that
that?
multi-bonder is pretty strong.
See, with the two multi-bonder steps on adding Quicksilver, that saves 2 cycles compared to sticking each Quicksilver on individually. And then that goes straight to the output. Similarly, this is, and here's the second pipeline that saves it a little with the low speed of taking inputs. So yeah, this is extremely latency focused, rather than rate
Yeah.
focused.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that.
Okay, below 30 cycles now.
Oh, geez. I was thinking we had a little time before we broke 30. Look at those multi-bonds.
So here we have a little bit of futzing with the silver. That's where some of the delay compared to min comes from. Makes up for it a little bit with the multi bonds. And
And
then
here
goes to
you see
output.
something. Sorry, go on.
I forget what
Here
I
you
was
see
going to
something
say. You talk.
interesting with the an asymmetric output. So one of the pipelines delivers straight on, um, like just delivers straight in. The other one takes a little extra time to correct. It's a little unfortunate that it ends up having to take 2 extra cycles because if the first pipeline could deliver sooner, then the top pipeline would be the last input in. Or wait. Yeah, the second pipeline is the one with the lower latency. And so ideally you want the first pipeline to get in before that because that would save a cycle. But in order for that to happen, the second pipeline needs to actually arrive 2 cycles earlier to the output.
I think something like that was covered in the Biggie blog for Surrender Flare. Like how if you have two pipelines, even if one of them is has a 1 step worse latency, it's still fine. If one of them has and if it has 2 steps worse latency, that's still only like a penalty of 1 from your final cycles, just because of the math of how one of them is going earlier than the other, and you have to not have a blocked output, that kind of thing. That was the only 29. Here's a 28.
Wow. Another
Okay.
clutch multi-bond.
So we are really losing all the regrab budget. Here,
Yeah.
there's like one regrab for the silver, but then that silver goes straight to doing all 8 operations. Then Quicksilver multi bonds.
Which lets you avoid a regrab,
Yep. Waits another
and that's
cycle.
clutch.
Yeah, it waits another cycle, does another multi bond, and then is on its way to the output, where the rest of the regrab budget is spent.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a great illustration of where of sort of advanced cycles optimization where those salts are the quicksilvers are pre-placed on the bonder, meaning that the arm that drops the quicksilver off can let go because there's already an arm grabbed on ready to move it. And so you can actually get a regrab this way without costing a cycle, which is huge for big puzzles like this. The real struggle here is just that the output is too far apart.
An underappreciated difficulty of cycle puzzles like this, like we can talk about latency and regrabs and multi-bonding all we like, but there really is just a fundamental problem of for every input you have to make an output. Everything is happening so much faster than in other archetypal cycles puzzles.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. And the sorry, go on.
it's why Surrender Flare is just that damn nail-bitingly hard.
And the dodgeball ends up becoming critical. of how many atoms can you get flying around without bumping into each other.
This arm doesn't halt, the rest of them do.
That's really funny.
And here's a 28 with much less area and less stuff. Well, this really looks like it should be faster than 28, but the numbers don't lie. Let's see, we have one regrab on the silver, kinda, though I don't... Yeah, one regrab on the silver, then one cycle spent to get the quicksilver into place for multi-bonding. Then these last two quicksilvers aren't applied simultaneously. And outputs. So where's the? Oh, okay. My bad. This input isn't drawn at the best rate. That's where the extra
Right.
delays come from. Yeah, Brother Mojo caught on to it. Oh, and it was in the title. Blech. Me dumb. Why do you let me host streams? Okay, I'm done with the 28s. Let's have a 27.
We're going down fast.
We sure
I
are.
wonder where the pileup is. At this point, the symmetric pipelines seem to be coming in at the upper end of each of the cycles counts.
Yeah. The notes say, the final regrab is bugging me a bit, but I couldn't figure out how to skip it within this layout. The design was fully symmetrical and looping with disposal in the middle before I ruined it for marginal secondary gains. The process to get from the reagent to the product is barely parallelizable, masterfully evil design, which made this a huge challenge for latency. Overall, happy with the solution considering my lack of cycles experience. So not much of a drop to the next one. Bold.
How's the appreciation stream?
Yeah, bold title, but nah. People who know how to do cycles underestimate how few people know how to do cycles.
Yeah, that's very often true. Very nice use of the multi-bonds here on the right-hand pipeline in particular, but also on the lower pipeline.
Yeah, this is another one of those that skips inputs because of the constraints of putting atoms on unification. Because if you forget about that, this looks really good. They're like, let's look at the top pipeline for an example. Silver has its 8 things done consecutively, and the last Quicksilver only has 2 moments of delay before it gets to the multi-bonder, and when it does, the rest of the molecule is already there. So it looks like it only loses 2 cycles, but it actually loses a few more because not drawing the input at max rate really puts a crimp in your swag.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because that's one cycle per iteration of the machine that you lose.
Another smallish drop in product. The notes say, I keep just not having the time to work. Kinda sad because the stream isn't as exciting when I haven't explored much of the solution space. Cool puzzle though. Thanks, Kasian. Yeah.
I love that handoff. Or sorry, not the handoff, the drop off. I love that.
Yeah, some solutions have struggled with getting the two pipelines of the completed product to the output glyph, but this one doesn't struggle with that at all.
Yeah, no, this is a beautiful sort of upper pipeline.
I am enjoying this recurring motif of when it's time to reject the silver, it is moves it past a bank of four different glyphs of rejection all in a line. That's just neat.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I think what we're really seeing here is that a lot of what's sort of determining who's getting like what cycle score around this section is just who can get to the like making the pipeline isn't the hard bit. It's getting the two pipelines to converge back in the same place that's the hard part.
Love Math Boy, your notes did not save. Like I'm looking at the part of my parser that displays notes and there are none for you. I'm sorry. If you want to copy paste them in chat, I can read them. Yeah. Yeah, so that happens. Yeah, the way the backend works is that the website does store your notes and stuff, but like after the deadline, I press a button to download everything uh, to my local computer, and if you update after the deadline, well, I have a local copy, not the website copy, so sorry. Yeah, your notes say, according to you in chat, this puzzle sets apart the strong from the weak. Unfortunately, I am the weak. Okay, we're gonna drop to 26 cycles. The notes say, I was pretty happy to design a period 6 pipeline that assembles a product with minimal latency and readily copied it twice in different directions. But getting the assembled products back to the output is a real head scratcher. I think a saner way to reduce cycles is to make two period 4 pipelines which can form products much closer together, but I couldn't figure it out, and I spent too long on this solution already. Yeah, that's what previous solutions have had trouble with and why some of them have skipped inputs. The period 6 issue. Minimum latency
On the middle
is
pipeline, I presume.
yeah, minimum latency is when you do the 6 operations on silver, grabbing silver, and then when you take off quintessence, you move it straight to a multi-bonder, then straight to another multi-bonding. In this place, it's done being equipment,
Or pivot.
pivot, and then straight to output. Now, this doesn't do it exactly straight to output because it needs to slide again.
Yeah, yes, that's +1 latency on that pipeline.
But this is still very impressive. And I think at this point, to explain where any of the lost cycles are coming from, we have to acknowledge that um, this is Optimal. This is the thing you're trying to go for. Uh, 8 operations on silver. Then when the final then you grab the final quicksilver, you move the final quicksilver to form a bond on a multi-bonder with the rest of the molecule already completed, and then you move it straight to the output. If
Yeah.
you can somehow do that for every single product, you will get 23 cycles.
Um.
Yes, I hear Billy Mays off in the corner. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Here's your solution.
That's not my solution.
Is it not? How about this?
That's my solution.
Do you want to read your notes or should I?
You can go for it. I don't have them pulled up.
The notes say the pipelines have 2 regrabs, one right away and one after the last debond. The second regrab was a Thinko, but I didn't have time to look for a better layout. The fact that I couldn't get the output directly above the input will haunt me. Making the right pipeline drop off 1 hex over costs 65 G, though it does make the 2 different disposal pipelines pretty cool. No waste chain is a nice plus too. I look forward to seeing the mad woman who gets sub 24.
Yeah, when I wrote those notes, and when I made this solution last night, I'd forgotten about multi-bonders. Although I don't think I would have found a multi-bonder layout at the top, probably. Definitely could have shaved a cycle or 2 that way, but I only had 6 hours to work on this, so I'm pretty happy with it.
It's extremely good for only having 6 hours to work on it. As for what you're talking about, multi-bonders, there is a tempting second idea for how to disassemble and reassemble an input. You grab not by the silver, but by one of the cardinals, so that you can debond 3 cardinals, then the 4th, then go straight to unification. So you get the quintessence actually a cycle earlier than if you do it the other way.
Yes, that is what I said. Sorry, go on.
I think you were going to say what I was going to say.
I was going to say that the 2... Well, I said that's why I said the 2 regrabs in the first part of the pipeline, because one of them is the regrab right away, but then the second one is the regrab on the last cardinal to get it to unification. So there's one regrab immediately after the pull, and then another regrab right here just before the unification. Also, I realized that right here won't mean anything to you because of stream delay.
That's fine. Yeah, so those are the two fast ideas to keep in mind. Forming the Quicksilver, not the Quicksilver, the Quintessence 1 cycle early, or you could form it 1 cycle late but get to do 2 multi-bondings. The last one, the second option is theoretically faster. It's just a lot more finicky.
Yeah, the title I meant to give this, thanks to my girlfriend looking at this and telling me what she thought it looks like, is The Last Metroid is in Captivity.
Yeah.
Anyway, who's 28th?
My parser is not having a good time. Okay. The notes say 26. Brevity is the soul of wit.
So only 2 on the top pipeline, which means the bottom pipeline is going to be at +1 latency, right? No, +2 from theoretical min.
Wiggle time.
Pivot.
Yeah. Hmm. So this is another one of those solutions that has 2 pipelines, one of which does 4 outputs and the other does 2. This slower pipeline on top takes a while to get to the input, so that's why. The title suggests that a lot of work was done on this. It's just slightly better in product due to things costing less. It's a bit more area expensive, but not enough to affect placement. We have polite disposal. And the disposal is over area that would have been swung over anyway, so it's no big loss. That's nice.
I love the zigzag with the silver. Very pretty.
The notes say, replace a couple piston arms with arms on track. I had a lot of fun getting to 26, delving into cycles theory and making a solve which roughly followed that. I assume min is 23, and the extra 3 cycles are my taking an extra turn to move the quintessence, and the second and third loop of each pipeline you need to wait an extra turn because I have the last demodder on the other side of the glyph of unification. So otherwise it would crash into the quintessence. Trying to lower the cycle count further proved futile, unfortunately, so I just worked on the X a bit and called it a week. I hope we see 1 or 2 23s. The 3 regrabs worth of time are well spent here. 1 regrab's worth of time is spent in maneuvering the quintessence into position, and actually, where are the other
I'm
2?
gonna be right back.
Yeah, and the other 2 regrabs were there just because the quintessence is formed a bit late. Otherwise, everything looks really good with this solution. Thank you, Miner Man. Okay. Lilia writes, I started out by trying to make a latency solution. I'm pretty sure 12 is theoretical minimum, but for a design that can work with 2 pipelines, I couldn't get it lower than 14. I tried cutting the rate per pipeline down to 4, but ARM 8 and 9, 24 and 25 in the bottom pipeline, are a problem for that. I also seriously doubt if it's possible without increasing the pipeline latency to 16 or more, which is needed to decrease the total cycle count. I hope I did well. I had the base of this design pretty quick, so that might be a bad sign. I sadly won't be able to catch the stream because I have D&D, so please let me know how I did. I think this is a similar placement to in the other metric. The other one was 27, if I recall. Okay, so 2 extra cycles are spent in not taking the input at full rate, but instead of like at period 6, like some others, instead of skipping every third input like previous solutions had, this is just taking 1 extra cycle between sets of 2 inputs. And then after that, the other regrab's worth of time is spent because the silver doesn't go straight from this glyph of projection here to the 2 on the right. It has to have a regrab of time. And I think there's... Okay, so where is the... It looks like there's 4 regrabs worth of time. Am I just not seeing how this works? Okay, yeah, I'm not totally sure how the math works out. This seems like to me it should be a 27, but I'm clearly missing something. It's done well.
I just got back. Let's see.
Welcome back. Yeah, I'm puzzling over how this is a 26 because it looks like it should be a 27.
So
There are
one
2.
regrab.
So like, there's 1 regrab on this, this silver here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I
One
see.
drop.
I see. The regrab on the silver and the 1 cycle delay in assembling the final product from the multi bonding is actually the same regrab because.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now I get it. Now I get it. Here's 25 cycles. We now only have time for 2 regrabs. I don't think we're going to be seeing anything that takes inputs at less than full throughput again.
Yeah, I'd be.
Let's
see it.
The notes say, "I'm sure it's possible to do this a cycle faster, but I couldn't figure it out in time. Oh well." So here we have... Yeah, 1 cycle is lost because we're doing the grabbing by a cardinal instead of grabbing by a silver. Then the silver has another regrab once it's copper.
Is there a cycle loss? The quintessence is coming off at full speed, isn't it? Yeah, but there's no multi-bond here. That's where the loss is.
Yeah. When you grab by a cardinal in form. Yeah. When you grab by a cardinal to form quintessence as early as you can, you have to basically not use multi-bonds, and that takes 1 cycle, and then 1 more cycle is lost from, I think, this stalling moment of being copper but not moving.
No, I don't think so, because like the silver, the latency on the silver is not what matters. It's the latency on the quintessence, right?
Right.
And so now bonding, getting the silver off like this, it does mean that a multi-bonder is less viable. Oh yeah. So a multi-bonder wouldn't work here, and then wait, but where is this?
Okay, so the ideal pipeline, if you grab from a cardinal, form quintessence as early as possible, and then make bonds to the quicksilver as early as possible, would get you to 24 cycles. This is 25,
and
that's because
there's a latency on the quintessence. Yeah.
Yep, it is. The quintessence is formed 1 cycle later. If you notice, ARM7 was holding onto the air. If everything was ideal, it would move it straight onto the glyph of unification, but it actually takes a little bit of a detour because of geometry constraints and then
Yeah.
unifies.
Yes.
It is getting hard to see where any of these machines are not reaching min cycles. They are getting really good.
Yeah, agreed. Well, and below 24, you have to get really creative.
So here, I think a final output is formed as fast as possible. At least on this pipeline, because this pipeline has minimum latency. It's just that the other pipeline, when it forms its product, it's here, where here is going to be the quintessence. So some time has to be spent in walking it back over to the other product. That's why it's 25C instead of 23. The title, I think, is a reference to some computation puzzles which have allowed the the players to have 2 weeks to solve the puzzle instead of 1 week. I don't think that it's been the case for cycles puzzles like this, though. The notes say, I still can't believe it. I am pretty used to optimizing for rate, but actually caring about latency makes everything so much more difficult. At first I made a layout and saw that it was close to a 25, but with no chance of a 24. So I moved on and remade it into one which had a possibility of getting 24, and oh my god. I spent hours and hours restarting for that layout. I already gave up on 24, so I was willing to lose a tick, but it always, just barely, didn't work. Either a very close atom collision stopped me, or the impossibility of getting the last Quicksilver to the bonder in one tick. Finally, I came back to my very first layout and saw that it was not very far from actually working. A few hours later, I had the 25. Some cost optimizations resulted in the solution you see here. If you stay at max rate, this solve is min plus 2, which is really good, I think. One tick is wasted on regrabbing the metal and in parallel sliding the quintessence onto the bonder, and another is wasted on sliding the output at the end. I am sure avoiding the final slide is possible, and we will see a 24. 23 at max rate would require no metal regrab, which I think is questionable, but this community never fails to surprise me. Of course, the reason that I keep saying at max rate is that you don't need to make more than 6 outputs. That means that the 7th input is free for the taking. You can use parts of it as an element or a quicksilver to speed up the making of the 6th output. Perhaps you could gain 1 or 2 ticks with that method, however it is beyond my ability. Sorry for the rambly notes. Now let's see the top solves. So exciting.
Great summary of the theory, though.
Yes. Mr. Puzzle has the notes in the title, basically. What's this lead handling? I like it.
That is weird. Oh, it's just waste chaining. I see.
Mm-hmm.
Or looping.
slight improvement on Mr. Puzzle by 10 costs in one area.
Wow.
The notes say, "Wow, cycles was my favorite metric in the campaign. Surely this will be a really fun since I actually have experience in the metric." Anyways, the solution title probably tells you where that went. I tried for so long to get 23 cycles, what I would consider a reasonable min, and I congratulate anyone who got there. But I have successfully defeated the sunk cost fallacy by dealing with the inadequacy of my solution and just delaying it. And I am almost certainly done for this metric of the puzzle. I am pretty sure that theory min is 20 cycles by grabbing a 7th reagent to speed up the creation of the 6th product, which theoretically just enough speed gain to turn in that 6th product in just before the 5th, though I wouldn't be surprised if either the geometry of that would be impossible, nor if I miss something entirely and first place somehow pulls 19 cycles. So I have had a few people in notes or in my DMs floating the possibility of cycles radically below 23. To avoid being too mysterious, I'm just going to say I don't know what you guys are talking about. There are other ways to constrain the minimum cycles on this puzzle.
Yeah, Rebix put out a pretty clear proof that it's 21, I believe, in the Discord. Was also what I thought of at first.
Drop of mostly area here. So it's not a perfect symmetry between pipelines because the output is tilted, but it still works. I think we're going to be seeing multi-bonders from here on out as well. Twitch chat, as you mentioned about Discord discussion, I will review that Discord discussion after the stream. Sounds like a good time. Anyway, 24 cycles. This is an auspicious number for a few different reasons. You get what I internally to myself call the slow route. You get the slow route is what I mentioned previously. You're grabbing by a cardinal, debonding everything as fast as you can, moving to unification as soon as the last cardinal is debonded. Then you take that Quicksilver off, do 4 individual bonds. You take the quintessence off, do 4 individual bonds to Quicksilver, and then slam it into the output. Or you could do what I call the fast route. You do 8 consecutive operations on the silver and 2 multi-bond attachments of the quintessence to the Quicksilver, and then dunk that into the output. If you do it you could try the fast way, but that would give you 23 cycles. So this is taking the regrab on the fast way instead of doing the slow way as best as possible. Let's see how it's done. And I'm not just mentioning the slow way because it's a silly thing. Some of the plebeian 24s will do, unlike us patrician 23s. This is foreshadowing for something.
Looking forward to it. Sorry, I'm being distracted by Discord. I'll focus back on the stream.
No worries. You can be distracted by the Discord for me, because I can't do it. The notes say... Uh, okay, so the previous note said couldn't figure out a layout where the product is submitted in one cycle. Looks pretty cool, though. These notes say, I'm very satisfied for throwing this thing together in 3 hours. Not a cycle main anyway. Min plus 2 in theory is it, yet going lower would require Quicksilver 6 product to come from 7th reagent, which is for the cycle mains, not me to try. I feel like if you called yourself a cycles main for getting 24 on this puzzle, nobody would question you on it. But you,
Absolutely.
yeah, but you are free to say that you are better at other metrics than you are at cycles.
Especially for 3 hours work.
Yeah, I mean, dang.
This is a very impressive 3 hour puzzle.
Yeah, this is doing the slow way at its best because it starts with grabbing a cardinal. The notes say, so, if I show you this picture, what do you see? Marbles. Colorful, elbow-shaped marbles. And if I show you this? Link 3 swing collisions. And this one? 4 glyphs of equilibrium disposal. I need holidays. P.S. I almost got a 23 working. Hope someone got 22. CX was my favorite metric in this tournament. Maybe I found my main for the off-season.
CX is a great metric. Highly recommend. It's so cursed.
Yeah. This is significantly more area conscious than the previous solution, so that's why it beats it out on the secondary.
Also, the great thing about cycles as a main is that if you make one good cycles solution, then everybody will just remember that about you forever.
Okay. This is much like the previous solution, but with less stuff. The notes say,
Very cool.
this is further than I thought I could push this. Only one cycle slower than Min with this setup, from what I could tell. This is stylish.
Yeah, absolutely. I love passing over the disposal. Holy shit. That looks great.
It looks like this this cool thing is why this is a 24 instead of a 23, because both of these pipelines look like they're pretty optimal, except that they end with their product in different places. So you got to take the one cycle by grabbing from the faster from the earlier pipeline and dunking it into the output that the later pipeline can reach immediately.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
I love that Amelia is just like having the time of her life in all these solution titles.
The notes say, top and bottom are two different assembly methods. I waste one cycle in each pipeline to reground the metal, so I guess it's naive min plus one. I expect no one will go lower than 23, as that would require pulling a 7th in to squeeze some juice out of. But who could be bad enough to attempt such a thing? This is a tiny improvement on Goodbye Galaxy's product. We have another troubled pipeline output.
Yeah.
Because this one can output immediately, but the next one can't. We don't get the super swagged disposal position from two submitters ago.
Yeah, that's true. From Wind Pearl. I think that's actually the best solution. We should just like bump her up to first.
I really hope it's Burrito somehow. Parser. Okay, here we go. The notes say, big area, big costs. I'll probably end up at the tail of 24 cycles solves. Had fun optimizing it for cycles as much as I could. This is not at the tail.
Yeah, definitely not. One thing I wonder, looking at these, is sort of like, is the hex arm the optimal way to deal with waste, or is this just sort of what worked and then, like for the product secondary?
It kind of looks like the hex arms were not necessary per se, because you could hold on to. Okay, so this track loop has this triangle bend here, so it looks like unfortunately I'm going to tinker here. These two calcifiers would be where two of the lead go, and the remaining lead would stay.
Yeah.
Would stay here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love the zigzag path that the quintessence takes in this.
There's a lot
Very
of clever
simple.
routing you have to do at this speed.
Yeah.
If anyone knows what this title says, say it in chat, because I don't.
The sun n'échappe à mon regard. I can pronounce it. Nobody dodges my gaze, I think.
I'll take your word for it.
No. Échappe is... Yeah, I could do like academic French, but I can't do idiomatic French.
This would have been a good place for the Crytali. Also,
Yeah. Yeah.
just one multi-bundle on each pipeline, because you can theoretically handle the second multi-bond by just doing a pivot on the quintessence, which is why this back route for Quicksilver is here. Allows for
Yeah.
the ending points of the pipeline to be pretty close together.
And well, the multi-binder here, the the multi-bonder here lets you re-grab the quintessence on the same cycle as the second Quicksilver comes up, which is how this solution gets so tiny.
Delightful. Okay. To make it to the top 10, you had to get 23 cycles.
Impressive. So I remember I told you I expected about top 5 on 24, because I thought that 24 was min at max throughput.
Yeah. So the the slow way is no longer an option. You have to... Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, so the slow way is still an option for one of the pipelines because it
Yes.
only loses one cycle, but for the second pipeline, you have to use the fast way. And you have to lose 0 cycles on the fast way. You have to make the quintessence as soon as that last cardinal debonds. You grab it, you re-grab it, and then put it on there. Then that quintessence goes straight to 2 Quicksilver, and then straight to the other 2 Quicksilver, and then straight to the output. And this isn't, like, even symmetrical.
No, because the left-hand pipeline is taking the slower route, which is probably the way to do it here, because you have that extra latency, and you damn well want to use it.
The notes say, on Thursday, I dismissed 23 cycles as being tremendously silly, but fortunately, I am a silly cat. After reaching 24 cycles, I went to try to make a proof of concept 1/2 of a potential 23 cycle solution, and to my despair, I found that it is possible, despite needing to carry the silver from start to finish with the horrible tracked river. I stitched it together with half of my 24 cycle solution, started iterating on both halves to find the geometry that would coincide to output on the same spot. I went through 10 or so solutions that were just a hex or 2 away from success, before finally landing on this one. I would like to give shoutouts to 3 arm track loops, the entirely unused donut hole in the middle, and every arm involved in the beautiful Quicksilver cascade on the right side. Donut hole. Yeah, so this is the importance of slow route and fast route. You could actually use both, and using slow route for one but not both of your pipelines gives you additional flexibility.
That is true, goodbye. That is true. We do call them Timbits.
Jamu says, Min +1, not too happy about this solve. Not minimum cycles. Min requires a 7th silver and min latency quint for 1 less latency, but it is far too dubious for me to require this short of time. Fun puzzle, Kasian, much appreciated for a cycles puzzle. Prediction, top 45th.
Is this a double fast?
Yes, this is double fast. We've got a much bigger Timbit in the middle here.
Oh, jeez. Massive track. That's for waste management.
Billfuck writes, the L stands for latency.
Aw.
I enjoy the party at the end.
Yeah, I think more solutions should have parties, really. I'm kind of sad that this party comes to a finish, though.
If you can't loop, at least you could party.
It would be funny to like party and then get like all 6 lead to like try and enter the same hex at the same time.
Parser moment, please hold.
We should make a modified metric that's like instructions, but you can party as much as you want.
That would be a good experiment for the weeklies.
Yeah, except that it would have to kind of suck because you'd need to like make it a 6p so you could have the party. So you'd need something like instructions, but repeats don't count.
Okay. Small improvement on 40 cost and 3 area. Push. The notes say a last minute rushed effort to get my 24 down to a 23.
Well, it succeeded.
Great rush.
2 separate. Oh, there's a slide. There's a slide at the end. Or, well, not a slide, but that Quicksilver coming off. So rather than using, this is a double slow, but with a Quicksilver steel.
Yeah, so this is what previous solutions have been speculating on. You can use the 7th input to speed things up a little bit. In this case, it steals a Quicksilver. This allows a multi-bonding at the end rather than 2 consecutive bonds, so it can save a cycle even though it should be a 24, but through sheer theft, it gets to 23 instead.
This is where it's going to get good.
No kidding. Okay.
Because stealing is magic.
I hope my voice holds up for this, because there are notes. The notes say, okay, so let's talk theory. If you use 1 input to make 1 output, you can get an output on 13. Repeat 6 times at 2 rate, and that makes it 23. The route to do so has 8 consecutive actions on silver, with no regrabs, which is yucky. Quint also comes out late because you have to regrab the last cardinal. Now if you use 1 input to make Quint, but borrow Quicksilver for a 2nd input, you could get an output on 12. That would be a 22, with 7th input stealing. Oh, but you could do worse. You could borrow 1 cardinal from a 2nd input as well, speeding up your Quint and theoretically getting an output on 11. Now you run into blocked output with 7th input stealing, but there is technically time to use a Quicksilver from the 7th input to speed up the 5th output to resolve that problem too. Theory min of 21 is absolutely insane. In my experience, making either a first output 11 or a full rate 23 is just too hard. I tried to get the output on 12, but decided I needed to focus on making a mirrorable quintessence generator with the lowest latency. At least the lowest latency possible using a single input. I made that, and it continued into a pretty nice 24. After a lot of fiddling, I got the secondary down under 240k.
You want me to finish the rest?
No, I'm good. Input stealing was not very convenient with that layout, but I attempted it anyway. A 23 beats all 24s. I only aim to steal a single Quicksilver and use it to shorten the bonding on the 6 output from 4 steps to 3 steps. Even that was finicky, requiring me to redesign the lower half of the machine twice. If you gave me a year, I could probably make it 22. Anyone who makes one in a week is a wizard. Also, 3 cheers for that track river. The notes were pretty good commentary on this solution on their own, so I'm going to move on ahead.
That track river really deserves some attention.
Yeah, Squiggly Boy. Appreciate Squiggly Boy. The notes say, the most important thing when solving a cycles puzzle like this is to start with the glyph of disposal and then make the rest of the design with it in mind. As environmentally sound people, we never compromise on that. And this is exactly why I use it, and not because I randomly found there's a glyph of disposal shaped hole of empty but swung over hexes in the middle of my design. Sarcasm. No working 7-piece shenanigans from me. I wish I could have gotten it done, but honestly it wasn't really close. I also made a max rate version of this for Showcase because, as we all know, designing and tweaking cycle designs is the best. Note the swing by arm 5 after cycle 16. Okay, let's find 5. Okay, here's arm 5, and we're on cycle 16. It's gonna do a swing. Yep.
Yeah.
Move the lead just out of the way to avoid this.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, that's a fantastic track river, too. I really love the ridiculous track rivers that come up in some cycle solutions.
Behold the Squiggly Boy.
I just have this like mental image of all these arms like going up to the front and then there's like bump into each other like wait, there's no way out.
Just packing into them tightly into the middle like a cinnamon roll. Hey, that's not shampoo. This is shampoo.
Is this symmetrical?
Yes, this is symmetrical. This solution, or at least a close variation on it, was submitted actually pretty early into this puzzle's life cycle. Like, at this point, we were kind of wondering if anyone would get a 23, then Shampoo just drops one in there while people are fretting about how hard 24 is, refuses to elaborate, and leaves.
The swing around with the silver, the 3-arm swing through all those glyphs. It sets up for a very fast sequence of bonds on the quintessence, which gives you the motion.
Take a look at that silver swing again. Also, previous solutions have really struggled with collisions. I think everyone has, but this makes it look like cheating a little bit. What do you mean you have all of these length 3 swings? What do you mean you're swinging around your silver like a baseball bat?
Yeah. Well, I think what's going on here is that the setup with these multi-bonders gives you a very nice. You are making a lot of big swings, but it also means that you have sort of a lot of space because there's a lot of room in between the positions of the silver and the quicksilver. Right?
Right.
And so as a result, you have a lot more space to work with, a lot more hexes where your arms can sort of hang out. and then the silvers clear out of the way by the time the quicksilver's coming through. So it's really elegant. And yet, it's only 4th place.
Yeah.
Wait, there's a slight asymmetry there. Oh well.
We can go back to, but no, let's keep it moving.
Yeah, let's keep moving. It's already been 3 hours.
Yeah.
At most, 1 banana.
So Gooey made a bet about if anybody beats Gooey's cycle count, they will eat a banana, and Gooey really does not like eating bananas. The notes say L equals 9 if grabbing the input by a salt like. L equals 10 if grabbing by a silver. The L equals 9 approach needs quicksilver from a 7th input to complete the final product in 22 cycles. Rather than spend all week failing to achieve this, I decided to go for the straightforward min+1 strategy where every input is grabbed by the silver. Spare latency in the odd input pipeline is used for cost savings. Fratelli is unused. Probably possible to get much better secondary at 23 cycles with a more area-conscious design. This is a really good 23 cycle solution, though.
Yeah,
Any 23 cycle solution is hella good, but this one especially.
I love that tri-arm. I don't know why. I love that tri-arm.
Yeah, it looks like it's in danger of grabbing a copper when it's here, but it's really not.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Congratulations on your podium, Gooey.
Congratulations.
Well deserved.
Very.
You.
So this leaves us Callie and Rebix, right?
Right. Yeah. I just want to appreciate Gooey for locking in this week. A little bit behind the scenes, paraphrasing. I heard from Gooey. Instead of sulking about tax fraud, I will instead just try to do my best on week 6, and it really shines. Let's move on.
That's what you gotta do, is just pick up, keep going. I had 2 really bad, well, I had 1 really bad week and 1 skip week, and you gotta keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know, you could end up back on the podium. Unlike me.
The notes here say sub 23 might be achieved after the tournament, but I think 23 is practical min given 1 week. This was locally optimized from the first working layout I found, and so I have no good idea how the product is. So I have no idea how good the product is, and yes, it is very good. Congratulations on 2nd place, Calioresis.
This looks a lot like GUI's in a way, with just the shape of it and the 2 separate pipelines that do slightly different things.
Not a track river, just 2 separate squiggly boys.
One of the one that is a loop, that's a river though.
Yep.
It's like a looping river. I guess we can call that a lazy river.
Sure is.
Does Rebix get tired of winning? One has to wonder.
So, since the era of warp fuel in 2023, there's been a growing consensus among the Cycles mains, and particularly Biggie, that the era in which you can win a Cycles puzzle on primary is over. I am happy to announce that Amelia's Catalyst is a counterexample.
Let's go.
going to slow down here. This is
Let's fucking go.
yeah. Here's the seventh input. It is being tossed through all of the tracks somehow, not crashing into anything, getting an extra Quicksilver, and that extra Quicksilver, that one extra Quicksilver is speeding up this left pipeline. GG.
That is incredible. Well done.
The notes say the solution speaks for itself.
It certainly does. Absolutely incredible. Well done.
Brother Mojo is pointing out that what's providing the Quicksilver is actually the 8th input. Here's the 7th input. What it's doing is speeding up the Quicksilver, the quintessence formation by one cycle. And that is why the 8th input needs to produce a Quicksilver, because you just don't have enough Quicksilver. You're just doing things too fast.
Yeah, that could have been the 7th, but it just geometry works out better to pull from the 8th, which is still absolutely wild. And yes, the theory min, it is possible in theory to do this in 21, although I think I agree with Biggie that it requires absolute wizardry, because it requires pulling more cardinals off. And it's just an absolutely nuts. But this 22, like, this is amazing. This is top tier solve. Legend right here.
Yeah, in an earlier era, Amelia's Catalyst 22 could have been on tier 1 of the remaining cycles on unfinished list that Grimmy, I wouldn't say maintains, but Grimmy has. But
Yeah.
it happened in a week.
Yeah. This in a week is utterly crazy.
The only question is whether Amelia's Catalyst 21 goes above Quintessential Medium 19 or below it.
No. This is, yeah, I agree with Biggie. This is like the creative accounting 22. And the 21C is up there, but Quintessential Medium is like in tier 0. Or tier -1. Absolutely nuts, Sol. Well done. Congrats, Rebix.
I'm going to get out the showcases now.
I think we should honestly just end the screen. Like, I'm joking. Go on.
It would be fitting to end at the 22C, but yeah. People sent me showcases. I'm going to show the showcases. Just a moment. Okay, this one, it's by Thingy. Thingy writes, I hate area metrics. I hate area metrics. I hate area metrics.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Crazy Bot. Just go to show cases and refuse to show Rebix's solution until after all of them.
The reason
That'll be
Ariometrics so hated could not figure out how to deal with this, because if you assemble Amelia's catalyst with a piston on the wrong side, you can't push the finished molecule past the piston. You just can't do it.
Oof.
This one is by you, I think.
Yeah, and this was my first attempt at width before I realized that I didn't need that I could like shuffle waste around, and the only reason it's worth a showcase is because hilariously it's exactly 200 cost, 800 cycles, and 40 area. So on the CX when I put it in the submitter, it's CX 800. So it's all perfectly round numbers.
Very nice.
And this one was also this was 2P with some conditional logic on shuffling the waste at the end.
200, 800, 40. This one is by Greenfield. The notes say, "It's not even a low rate. Quite embarrassing." Yeah, so with the glyph of rejection, you can just kind of immediately explode the quicksilver out into the silver out into 4 quicksilvers.
And dispose it.
Yep. Does have to wait for the glyph of unification to go off, but yeah, there you go. This one is by Busby. The notes say, "I thought doing it this way would save cycles. It did not. But by the time it was apparent it did not, I was in too deep. I went through the hell of programming this, so now you have to watch it." Oh, au contraire, Busby. I'm the host of the stream, and I've watched 50 of these suckers already. This is just the showcases. Half of the people watching have tuned out by now. I'm gonna skip this. I don't want to watch another one.
Brutal takedown by the host.
This one is by Shino. "I figured the submissions might be lacking 2 rate solves, so here's one."
I don't think we were lacking them at all. But this is an amazing track loop, frankly.
Squiggly boy.
Well, and it's all pistons, and it's got 2 different pipelines going in it. Like the inner track does one pipeline, and the outer track does the other pipeline. That's really neat.
This one is by Ghost Ship Supreme. The notes say,
What's this metric?
"This is how my assembly line solution was going to work originally, but I decided to go for a more fun approach rather than a compact one. I wanted to show off how satisfying it is when each arm rounds a corner."
Oops. Is the other showcase just a fixed version of the solution?
This last one is just a splash image. We are done with all of the showcases.
Busby said that there was something funny on theirs. Do you want to go back for it?
Yes.
That was Quintessence Jostler, I think.
Yes. Oh, I see. I almost missed this.
What? Is this doing what I think it's doing?
I don't know what it's doing. Oh! Oh no! Oh no! Oh dear! Oh yikes. I was a bit too hasty in wanting to skip this. I thought it was just gonna be a
It's very
layout.
fun.
I just thought it was gonna be a trivial layout tweak. Uh. Anyway,
Thank you
that.
so much for another wonderful puzzle.
Yeah, and I hope week 7 produces as much content as this one did. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you next stream. And thank you for yapping, Spectra Elimina.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Feel free to message me if you don't have anyone else for the other weeks. I may or may not be around.
Okay. Bye!
Bye.